Hello, and welcome to the 20th in my series of videos called Existential Philosophy. Today I'm going to talk about something seemingly very obvious, that things fall down. And you may well ask, what has this got to do with existentialism or existential philosophy? I'm just going to illustrate this. You see there's a nice little pebble that I found on the beach. Now, if it had stayed in the air, I would have been very surprised. Things fall down. Everyone knows this. Every child knows this. I mean, as soon as you're old enough to totter on your feet, you know you can fall down. You know that when things fall down, they break. It's something that's very obvious. And that's the point that I'm really going to discuss in this video. All around us, every day, our lives are filled with things that are so obvious we don't ask questions about them. And the interesting thing, I think, about things fall down is that a question was asked about it, very famously. And according to the history books, it was Isaac Newton, although it's a little bit more complicated than that. Isaac Newton asked why things fall down, and he came up with a theory. And at the time of the ancient Greek philosophers, as I'll talk about in this chapter, there were those who totally accepted that things fall down, and that was just one of the facts, that one of the ingredients in any theory. You know, you just accepted it as a fact. But there was a philosopher, definitely one philosopher at least, who tried to give an explanation of why. I didn't mention this in the chapter. His name was Anaximenes. And he actually produced a beautiful theory. It wasn't correct. And according to this theory, everything in the universe tries to reach an equilibrium. And so things fall down because there would be an unequilibrium if some things were higher and some things were lower. And then you say, well, what about the moon and the sun? And he said, aha, the moon and the sun aren't objects going around the earth as you think. They're rings of fire with breathing holes, and it's the breathing hole that goes round. So the Earth is right at the centre of a symmetrical universe, surrounded by these various circles of fire. And you know, as far as the stars are concerned, they're like little holes where light comes through as well. So he had a theory to explain it. And what I'm really asking you to do, this is really not about physics or whatever. I want you to consider the possibility that there are things to do with what we've been talking about, the existence of the world, the existence of I, that we don't ask questions about. I mean, the Greeks didn't ask questions about why there are things. Aristotle gives this proof about the unmoved mover, and he starts with the assumption that, well, we've got a universe where things move, there must be something that moves them. The Greeks thought that the big problem was how to explain how order, cosmos, comes out of chaos. Never occurred to them to ask why there's anything at all. And it still doesn't occur to most people, 99.99% of academic philosophers, to ask, why is there I rather than no I in the universe? And that's what I'm going to lead up to. So I've told you everything now you need to know. You don't even need to listen to the chapter, but it's entertaining. And what else can I say? You're very privileged to be sort of sharing in one of the best kept secrets of the internet, or YouTube at any rate, this series of videos. Do tell your friends if you think they might be interested to watch. Might push the viewing numbers up a bit. Right, let's go. Things Fall Down. Chapter 20 of my book, Philosophizer's Bible. As I said, you don't need to buy the book because I'm going to read every single chapter, right up to chapter 33. It's a lesson you learn when you're very small. If you drop something, it falls. Sometimes when something falls, it can break. Sometimes you can fall, and you can break too. Break your leg, or worse. Oops, there goes gravity. That's Eminem in Lose Yourself. There are many more ways to fall than just falling down drunk on stage, as any aging pop star knows, or any rising pop star for that matter. Weight, heaviness, the tendency to fall is all pervasive. A fact of nature, a fact about the universe. Who would even think of questioning what that is? A fact is a fact. The great Isaac Newton posed that question. Why do things fall down? What makes them fall? His answer changed our world forever, or so the story goes. The historical reality, as with so many scientific discoveries, is messier. We know that Newton was by no means working from a blank slate. Here is the most remarkable thing. What it took a man or men of genius to discover, every school child knows. If you're living in the UK or USA, you know that in Australia things fall up, because the Earth is actually round. It's Newtonian gravity that does all the pulling. In Australia they say the same things about us. They would, wouldn't they? Makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Not really. Gravity doesn't make sense. Action at a distance? How is that even possible? Critics of Newton were quick to jump on that bandwagon. Gravity, insofar as it explains anything, is a purely magical explanation. No one has ever seen gravity. If you offered a rival theory that invisible aliens or heavenly angels do all the pushing and pulling, always obeying God's inverse square law, of course, there's no experiment you could perform to disprove that hypothesis in favour of gravity. The two hypotheses are, to all intents and purposes, empirically equivalent. So, okay, you're going to use Occam's razor, aren't you? But how does Occam's razor establish truth, as opposed to some notion of probability? I ran a philosophy evening class once. One of our students was a woman in her 70s, a Quaker. Polite, conventional, a nice lady, we all thought, who could always be relied on to make useful contribution to class discussion. One evening, I can't remember exactly how the subject came up, she told the class that she believed in a flat Earth. Someone had shown her a globe when she was a young girl, and she thought, no way can that be true. So far as I'm aware, that is not a Quaker doctrine, if there is such a thing as Quaker doctrine, not something that Quakers are more likely to believe than non-Quakers. But the woman wasn't pulling our leg. Very quickly it became apparent, from her attitude, she really wasn't. She was flustered, agitated, almost pleading. Don't talk to me in that way. I'm not a nutcase. I have perfectly good reasons for what I believe. An entire 2-hour lesson was reduced to chaos, as members of the class in turn, myself included, tried and failed to come up with convincing arguments against the flat Earth theory. But when you look at the Earth's horizon from a height, it's visibly curved, we said. That's because the Earth isn't completely flat. It's actually curved, she replied. After that, we left the topic alone. Could the flat Earth theory be true? Speaking as a card-carrying skeptic, I would say yes. From a sufficiently vaulted perspective, anything is possible. Using your imagination, you can easily invent a suitable conspiracy story or sci-fi scenario. Dark City, perhaps? But let's not go there now. In ordinary conversation, I'm not likely to say, I don't know whether the Earth is round. I am sure that the Earth is round, and I have the right to be sure, as much right as I am sure of anything. Too much would have to be thrown away if I gave up that belief. So you can take it on my say-so. The Earth really is round and not flat. I could give reasons too, compelling evidence, although I am conscious that my knowledge has some gaps, especially after the incident with the Quaker lady. Somewhere in there is the knowledge that expert testimony is reliable. That could pose a problem for anyone whose tendency is to question what the experts say. I could still be wrong. I don't see any inconsistency with admitting that. I'm still sure of what I know. A decade ago, I would have been just as sure that Donald Trump would never become President of the USA. If it turns out that the Earth is flat after all, then I didn't know it was round, I only knew, in scare quotes. Let's not pursue that question now. It's the sort of thing philosophers love to debate, theories of epistemology. I want to ask a different question, a question about history. How is it that the great ancient Greek thinkers, like Thales or Anaximenes, never once thought to question or challenge the alleged fact that things fall down? According to Anaximenes, a flat, cap-shaped Earth is held aloft in an indefinitely extended airy expanse by a permanent updraft of wind. Like a leaf, he says. If you can imagine that. If a heavy pot lid can be blown off by a boiling pot, by the pressure of steam, he argued, then there's no reason why the same couldn't hold true of the Earth, massive though it may be. Q.E.D. Things fall down. You see it. It's a fact. Moreover, when we look around our world, we find that things are heavy, so designated, because they fall, if not held aloft. And light, so designated, because they rise into the air all by themselves, like steam from a kettle or dandelion seeds. Things fall because they are heavy. Heaviness just is the tendency to fall. There is nothing more to say. So that's one case where we moderns know different, don't we? But then what about all the other cases? What about all the other things we just know, the things we accept without question, as given facts, not requiring explanation? You getting this? Do you see where this is going? Are you beginning to see something, if only very dimly? I'm talking about suspicion. The philosophizer's suspicion. Not just the tendency to question everything, as philosophers supposedly do, but suspicion about the very notion of a fact or something given. You may have been taught that nothing is as it seems. This hard wooden tabletop is really atoms and molecules, blah blah. I'm saying that nothing is what it is. Nothing is anything. Waking life is not waking life. A dream is not a dream. This table is not a table, and these words are not words. Here's a thought. Why not make a list of all the things, all the aspects of your life or your world that you have hitherto regarded as not requiring explanation? See it as an exercise. Is I exist on your list? I talked in earlier chapters about the knack, a knack of seeing the world in a certain way. And part of what this is about is shaking ourselves free of our normal ways of seeing. And I say, see the world as a dream. I'm not saying that it is a dream. I'm not saying, hey, believe it or not, you're really dreaming, you're not awake. I'm saying see it as a dream. See the world differently. And see yourself differently. Instead of viewing yourself as society sort of orders you to do, tells you to do, as just some very, very small speck in a vast universe, see yourself as the center of the universe. See yourself as the most important thing. Look at all the things that you previously have not looked at. And as I said, this isn't just about, questioning everything. This is about something else. This is about suspicion, about doubt, about not being at home in the universe. Allowing ourselves, or not allowing ourselves, better still, not allowing ourselves to feel comfortable about being in the world. Because all this is just a story. Your life is a story. And this is a story that you've made up to some extent, and society has made up. And they've told you what you are and your place in the scheme of things. It's only a story. A story that keeps us basically asleep. And that's the really scary thing about what I do, or trying to do. And the big joke is that the people who call themselves philosophers, philosophers of the academy, academic philosophers, philosophers in universities, are not doing this. They're all busy, asking all sorts of questions. But the most fundamental questions of all, they just leave on one side. They don't go there because they don't know how to make progress with them. That's why I have very, very little in common with them. Although I was trained by the academy, I've basically rejected it. They're not asking the questions that one needs to ask. And I mean, my book is hilarious in some ways. It's very rude, it's politically incorrect, and all sorts of things. But I still think that it is, in my mind, the most important philosophy book of the 21st century. I'm entitled to think that. I may have executed it, actually done it, in a very messy way. But what I'm trying to do is something that needs to be done, and no one else is doing it. So it's been left to me. Bye for now.